TY, what's up? Josh here. We are starting this new series called An Unlikely Christmas. And how fitting that we're doing an unlikely Christmas this year in what is going to probably be a very unlikely Christmas celebration for all of us, just like Thanksgiving was probably for a lot of us. Didn't have the big meal with a lot of the people, but it's just a different year. I do have hope. I see light at the end of the tunnel. It's coming. And my hope is, you guys, that you're all doing well, and that even in the midst of this season and COVID, that we can still celebrate Christmas and the hope that came in the person of Jesus. So, we're gonna jump in. I just want to talk to you guys real quick about this story, the birth story, and the way that I understand it. It just seems so unlikely. Now, I'm not here to like have a pick a bone with God and say, God, this Christmas story, doesn't make sense. It's unlikely. I need you to clear this up for me. But just in my own mind, my understanding of how power and other thing works, and like the ability, like, God, you can do anything. You get to write the story. You are the one that is in control. And the way that the Christmas story plays out, in my mind, just doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe that's just because I would have done it differently and poorly. But here's the thing. It's an unlikely way in my mind, it's unlikely, the story, but it is so encouraging. And it is a reflection of who God is, and I think how he wants to usher in his kingdom. So I'm just going to read from Luke 2, the birth of Jesus. This is a new Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Probably most of us don't have it, but that's okay. We'll get the gist here. So Luke 2. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. Bet you didn't know that, but now you do. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. This is where the unlikeliness I want to kind of camp on today is through the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus. The reason we say unlikely is because Mary was a teenager. She wasn't yet married. Mary wasn't married. Okay, she wasn't yet married. She's a teenager. She's essentially, this sounds worse than I mean it to sound. She's essentially a nobody. And what I mean by that is she's not like this person or this character in the story that has this really important role in society and in culture. I mean, she does now, obviously, we know that. But I'm saying just in general, like prior to giving birth to God, she didn't have a big role. Just so unlikely that God chose her to be the one. Here, picking up in verse 6, while they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child. So here it is. It's time for Jesus to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in the bonds of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. In that region, there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid." Whenever an angel shows up in the story in the Bible, they always have to say, "Do not be afraid." It's because if you were sitting there and an angel showed up, you would probably be afraid. "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with an angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." So they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known what had been told to them about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. But Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, and it was as it had been told them. Okay, so that's like just the very short version. That's a Luke version of the birth of Jesus. But here's where I can find encouragement. God in his divine plan, rolling out of his purposes in this world, time and time again in the Bible, he chooses unlikely people to play a role in that plan. There's other examples. If you've been with us for a while, you've probably heard me say this before, but like Moses, stuttering Moses, the guy who has a hard time talking in front of people, and God's like, "Moses, I have a job for you. You're going to be my mouthpiece. You're going to be the one to speak for me." Like, wait. Paul, I am. You were going to write half of the New Testament, and Paul's like, "Wait, I kill people that follow you, that follow this Jesus person." Just time and time again, David, the eighth smallest, scrawny son of Jesse, all time and time again throughout the Bible, we just see God using unlikely people, right? Taking unlikely people and then saying, "I have something big for you." The encouraging part for me is that I'm not expecting something as like Mary in the Christmas story, that like God's gonna like use me to like introduce the second coming of Jesus. Like, that's not what I'm saying. The encouraging part is this: no matter where we are, no matter what it is that we're doing, no matter the passions that we have, the talents we have, the resources we have, big, small, great, not so great, a lot of resources, a little resources, wherever you are and wherever I am, I firmly believe that God, we don't have to be famous to make a difference in this world, in his kingdom. We don't have to have the biggest platform. We don't have to have the most followers. We don't have to have the most subscribed. Like, whatever it is, we don't have to have that to make an impact in this world. And that's so evident just even through this youth group. I've been here it'll be 7 years in a few months. In that time, I've seen students make impacts in their schools, in their communities, in their families, in their friend groups, just by little acts, some little tiny acts, some big acts, some little things, some big things. But I've seen you make a difference in this world. And the Christmas story is about Jesus. Don't get me wrong. It is about the Emmanuel, God with us. It's about the fact that God came to put on flesh and become human, to be one of us. Absolutely, it's about that. But in that story, we can also find the story of Mary, this young, unknown woman who God all of a sudden has this ginormous task and purpose for in life. And it just didn't make sense that God would use her, and that she would give birth to Emmanuel, Jesus, God with us, and that it would happen. Essentially, we call it a manger, and they didn't have room in the inn, and so they really, what it most likely was like a barn, like an animal stall, and Jesus was it was probably gross, and it made no, like, this most humble of places is where the king of the world enters. This is in the most humble of places, the way God decides. What is he telling us there? I don't know, but it's like, I feel like, I hope that's encouraging for you guys. For me, it is that God's going to take humble circumstances, humble people. He's going to take you and me, and he invites us into making a difference in this world through big or little acts of kindness, acts of love, acts of mercy, acts of joy, of service, of acts of courage and bravery. Those things all had to have taken place for Mary, right? Like, I can't imagine the bravery required for her to be able to, like, follow through and do this and be judged by people. I'm sure, I can't even imagine all the stuff she went through. The courage. Such an unlikely story. And oftentimes I think for myself, it's so unlikely that God is going to invite me into that and have this big, and use me in cool ways. But the reality is I've already seen him do that, and he's invited me into this story, and he invites you into this story. And man, I just hope you guys, this Christmas, that you can take some encouragement away from the fact that in the most unlikely of circumstances, God showed up. His son entered into this world in these crazy, hard circumstances, but here he is. And I pray that that would be true for you. He uses people in unlikely ways, and he wants to use you. So I pray, you guys, that you would go out and that you would be that extension of love, of joy, of peace, that extension of grace and mercy that God gives us. And that you would go do that, be that in your community, in your school, in your family, on your street, in your friend group, on your social media, whatever it is. All right? That's what I pray for you guys. So, Merry Christmas. We miss you guys so much. The time is coming. We're going to be together soon after the winter. Man, it's going to be cold. But love you guys. Merry Christmas. We'll see you soon. Go out and enjoy, go jump into this most unlikely of stories and answer the invitation that God is extending to each one of us. All right. Love you guys. See ya.